So welcome to the second talk in the series of becoming uniquely and powerfully you. My name is Sherry Forsyth. I'm a life coach practicing in South Africa, and I welcome you to ponder for the next few minutes on another way of becoming powerfully you. So last time in our first talk in the series, we spoke about what inspires you or who inspires you. And I hope that you managed to do some little bit of pondering about that in the intervening week. Because what is the link between that and what we're going to speak about today, which is being authentic, finding the real you. So according to Hannah Inam in her book Wired for Authenticity, she says you first have to know what inspires you, and then once you know that, in other words, what inspires you, what your passion is, then you can tailor-make yourself into the authentic you. And then you'll be very congruent because you'll be living out your passions. So that's the link between the talk last week and this week. So what does it mean to be authentic? So there are a few words that I'm going to just toss out as a guideline to us being authentic. It's being the fullest expression of me. It's being real, genuine, not copied or fake. Being true, being accurate, and being an original. It's letting go of who we think we are, or maybe who others expect us to be, and embracing the real you as you are. So I have a varsity friend who always makes the comment about the fact that I'm really down to earth. And I take that as a huge compliment, because what it means is what you see is what you get. You are who you are, and that is part of being authentic. So let's just talk a little bit about what stops us from being authentic. Mainly because it takes the courage to be your true self. It makes us quite vulnerable to put ourselves out there. So the main thing that stops us from being truly authentic is fear. As always, fear stops us from most things. But what is this fear? And it may well be, what if I am my true self and no one likes me? And an author in the probably 50s and 60s in the US, John Powell, has written quite a few thought-provoking books, but one of them is exactly looking at this question. What if I am who I am, authentically, vulnerably, and honestly so, and no one likes me? So my first challenge to you today is to try and be as authentic as you can be in as many areas of your life as you can. So how have we come to this place in our society where so many people, in fact, are inauthentic? It's because from our schools, from our families, from our friends, from our jobs, from our churches, from our partners, basically from our Western society, we have to fit in. In other words, we're not quite good enough as we are, so we have to change ourselves in order to fit in and be accepted. And so the minute we start doing that, the minute we start changing who we are, so we start with tiny little slivers of inauthenticity. And so as we repeat that process of fitting into different bodies, bodies of people, not our own bodies, as we have to fit into to be accepted at schools, at varsity, in our jobs, so we are becoming more and more inauthentic. We are changing ourselves to be acceptable. And what this results in is we become more and more disconnected from our authentic selves. And that's not a great place to be. So if we have really lost ourselves in this sea of authenticity, what is the first step that we can take on trying to regain our authenticity? So one of the little tips is to go back in time to when you were a child. And what did you yearn for when you were a kid? What did you yearn for doing? What did you want to be? And I'm not talking about the little facts that we all want to, that all the boys want to be policemen or firemen, and all the little girls want to be nurses or mothers or whatever it may be. I'm not talking about those little flitting, this is what we want to be when we grow up. I'm talking about a real yearning. What did you love to do when you were little? So this is where it links with what inspires you. So once we know what those yearnings are about, what we want to do when we were little, that often gives us a huge clue of who we are or who our authentic self is. So in my coaching, I'm very neurologically and neurochemically based. I need to know what the body's role is in our emotions. What were we naturally made to be emotionally? And so I have to ask the question, is our body wired neurologically and neurochemically for authenticity? Is that our natural state? Or are we trying to force our bodies and our minds to be authentic? So the simple answer to that question is that yes, naturally, our bodies are wired for authenticity. I won't go into the long neurochemical details, but when we are not behaving authentically, we actually are putting our bodies under stress. That is why lie detectors work, because when we are not being authentic, when we are lying, our stress levels increase, and that is what the lie detectors measure. So when we're not being authentic, our bodies are feeling the stress of that. However, when we are being authentic, our brains sit back and sigh with satisfaction, with relief, with happiness. So that's what we're aiming to do. Let's be true to what our bodies want us to be. Let us be true to how we were made to be, which in other words is being authentic. Another interesting fact is that emotions are contagious. As a result of the mirror neurons in our body unconsciously reading the mirror neurons of people we surround ourselves with. And then we unconsciously will copy them. So if we take the stand of being authentic, you will generally find that the people around us will be influenced also to be authentic. So how amazing is that? Maybe we should try and see if we can't start a ripple, which becomes a wave of authenticity. So the next question is, how can we become authentic? What is the process? And I'm trying to keep these talks very simple so that they are user-friendly and they're all things that we can do quite easily. And so it starts with acceptance. Okay? We have to accept that we are good enough. And I experienced a lovely comment from a friend of mine this week. We were having lunch, and she was saying how her parents really educated her to be very happy with who she was. In other words, authentic. And when she was at varsity, one of her lecturers or one of her friends said to her, "So, what would you change about yourself?" And she didn't even have to think very long. And she immediately said, "Actually, nothing." So, in other words, she had accepted herself for who she was, warts and all. Okay, so she wasn't saying she was perfect. She was just saying, "I am who I am, and I'm really happy with that." So Brené Brown, the author whose work is really so amazing, I'd like to read her quote, which she says, "Because true belonging happens only when we present our authentic and imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our sense of self-acceptance." So for those of you who want to follow this topic a little bit more, please join my YouTube channel where I have a short little 3-minute video on the fact that we are good enough just as we are. Okay, just as we are. So this doesn't mean to say that we need to sit back, kick up our heels, and not try and improve ourselves or try and achieve things. Rest on our laurels. I'm not saying that at all. We can always aspire to be better. But I don't want us to be thinking we are not good enough as we are. Okay, it's quite a fine line to draw between those two things. So our bodies, our minds, our souls are much happier when we are authentic. That is the natural state of being. So in being authentic in the way we live our lives, with our loved ones, in our jobs, it helps us to be stronger. It helps us to be more congruent. It helps us to be genuine. And we can give the best of ourselves out into the world. We can offer our unique thoughts, our talents, our jokes, our actions. If we try and change that to fit in with being somebody else, we're not going to be ourselves with our funny little quirks. We're not going to be able to say what we truly feel. And we therefore are depriving the world. We're depriving those nearest us of the essential me. We are failing to put ourselves out there. We are cheating the world. We're not allowing ourselves to be seen and heard. And the world is poorer for that. So last week I challenged you to always be proud of who you are and how you do things. And so this week I'm going to add to that challenge by saying, I'm going to ask you always to be true to yourself. Say what needs to be said. Follow that intuition. Be who you really are. Put yourself out there. And in doing so, you will then attract authentic people to you who are also trying to just be themselves, just being down to earth. And you will be good enough and you will be accepted because we will connect with people who are authentic. Does that make sense? So if you would like to put in the comment box below what you think are the major blocks to authenticity. Maybe just a word or a sentence, and it will once again help us all to communicate with each other about these topics that I'm raising. And so lastly, I would like to ask you if there's a certain topic that you would like covered, please also to add that in the comment box, which I will do my best to keep on top of. or you can send me an email at sherryforsyth@gmail.com. So that's spelled CHERRYFORSYTH@gmail.com. So I leave you with those challenges. I hope that you've enjoyed the topic today of being authentic, and I look forward to seeing you next week again in our next topic on making ourselves uniquely and powerfully strong and authentic. Until then, have a great week. Bye.